For joining us. President Trump says your city is, quote, lawless mayhem. He says that people there, quote, viciously are attacking our federal law enforcement officers. He also says the National Guard is, quote, ending the chaos, death, and destruction. Is that an accurate description of what's happening in Portland?
No, it's not. And good morning. Just to clarify, Portland Police Bureau has been actively engaged both in the area around the ICE facility, but really citywide in our efforts around crime reduction. I'm proud of the fact that we're down almost double digits, 20% in most major crime categories, being very intentional in our efforts and outreach with the community, recognizing there have been protests and demonstrations down at the facility, some that have engaged in violence and vandalism. But we've also had a number of demonstrations throughout the city involving tens of thousands of people that have had no issues at all. So we're managing the complexity of this pretty well, in my opinion.
So does Portland need help? Do you need more help to get crime under control?
Well, we'll always take help. I mean, the reality is that the challenges we're facing as a city are not uncommon in other cities across the country. And certainly crime is one of them as we continue to address that, as I said, very specifically. We could also use help with more teachers, and we could use help with more services around addiction and more help around mental health and more help around housing. There's a lot of areas that impact crime that are not specific to just enforcement. And the work that we're doing and managing, working with our local partners as well as our federal partners in addressing the issues specific around public order are certainly challenging, and they do exist. But I'm confident that the Police Bureau and the resources we have can manage what we were dealing with at the time.
I know there's a court hearing later today over Portland and the state's push to keep the National Guard out of Portland. Have those troops been deployed yet? Have you seen any of those troops? What's happening on the ground?
No, there are not any on the ground right now within the city, but we do anticipate in the coming days that we will see some at site security at our federal buildings. You know, these are Oregonians, these are citizen shoulders, these are men and women that have taken an oath, and I respect and appreciate their service. So this is not an antagonistic posture that we have towards these men and women and their service. We understand that they have a direction as well, but we're working closely, speaking regularly with the Guard and with our federal partners, trying to ensure a safe transition for everyone.
President Trump also recently activated the National Guard in Memphis, Tennessee. I want you to hear the message from White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, who recently spoke to officers there in Memphis.
I see the guns and badges in this room. You are unleashed. The handcuffs that you're carrying, they're not on you anymore. They're on the criminals. And whatever you need to get it done, we're going to get it done.
You are unleashed, he says. What are your thoughts on those comments?
When I heard that video, I thought it maybe would be a good halftime speech if we were going out to play the second half down by 7. But for law enforcement, we need to stay in the middle. We need to stay moderate. We need to stay calm. We need to stay consistent in our approach. And that's how we adhere to the rule of law here in Oregon, and certainly in the Police Bureau. My expectation is that our officers will be consistent in their application of the law, fair and just. The responsibility that we have is a trust that's given to us by the community we serve. And we do not tolerate violence. We do not tolerate vandalism. That is not part of free speech. And we have a concern of safety for all Portlanders. And that's the message that we are both delivering to our members and carrying out on a daily basis.
Not only are these armed service members on the streets of American cities, if you look as the tank rolls by, the sniper has his gun out on the protesters who are Americans. They're holding protests. General, help me understand, help the people watching this understand why we cannot allow this to become normal.
Two things. First of all, I don't think those are U.S. soldiers or National Guardsmen that are there. They are wearing masks. Guardsmen do not wear masks. The military does not wear masks. I think that those are, quite frankly, the thugs that are part of ICE and all the other people that are part of the federal forces. I need to make sure to distinguish between the two of them. You're absolutely correct. We should never, ever normalize the idea of American soldiers on U.S. soil. It's absolutely un-American. It reminds me, quite frankly, President Roosevelt in his inauguration said that we should be focused on the four freedoms: the freedom of speech and expression, the freedom of worship, the freedom from fear, and the freedom from want. None of those things are happening right now because people are fearful. People are not allowed to do what they want within the law. And this is not the American way. We should not be going there whatsoever.
Colonel, we're all watching what is transpiring in American cities, and it's really easy to put the emphasis on the service members who are there, but there are also conversations that are happening behind closed doors, often with attorneys who are being asked where the line is. Can you give us a sense, in a functioning democracy with a functioning military, what those conversations look like, and where you are concerned that this administration may begin to cross that line?
Sure. So the line really needs to be and should be necessity, right? The president does have authority to be able to both federalize National Guard troops, wresting them from the governor's own control, as well as send in active duty troops in times of invasion, in times of rebellion. And for here, in this case, federalizing the National Guard when federal law cannot be executed, quote unquote, by regular forces. And again, we don't have that here in Portland. But those would be some of the bases for lawfully using our military on the city streets for law enforcement, because the default, as the general aptly said, is to keep American troops focused on fighting foreign enemies overseas. They're to protect us. They're not to be used domestically against us. And so the conversations really would be coming down to the facts that were set before a federal judge today, which is, do the facts warrant the necessity to use the National Guard or federal troops, such as the Marines down here in Los Angeles, as domestic occupiers against we the people? And if those pictures that you showed in Chicago, showed that this is really a bullying, intimidation tactic to desensitize the American people to the use of military force on our city streets and to scare people, to chill them away from actually exercising their First Amendment rights to protest the government.
You know, General, there's a lot that's been made of the embarrassing conversation Pete Hegseth had with generals sitting in the audience there at Quantico. And I'd like you to listen to Stephen Miller and Pete Hegseth speaking to law enforcement in Memphis on Wednesday.
I see the guns and bats in this room. You are unleashed. The handcuffs that you're carrying, they're not on you anymore. They're on the criminals. And whatever you need to get it done, we're going to get it done. They think that they're hardcore. We are so much more hardcore than they are. And we have the entire weight of the United States government behind us.
We're not here to second guess you. We're here to have your back, to unleash you, to do your job so you come home safely.
From telling the generals that they're fat and that they are basically soft in many ways that he did not like, to speaking to law enforcement in Memphis and basically saying we're going to unleash you like they're canine or something to attack the citizens of the cities that Americans occupy. What is citizenship we make from this? Because we always appreciated the respect between civilian control of our military and that very fine but important line between keeping military force out of our cities and certainly not combining it with local police officers, militarizing them and weaponizing them against their own people.
In a nation torn between order and outrage, the streets of Portland, Oregon have become a battleground, not of war, but of words, power, and perception. Cameras flash, sirens echo through the night, and headlines paint the city in chaos. But beneath the noise lies a story much deeper, a struggle for truth in an America divided by fear and politics. Lawless mayhem, the president calls it, a city, he says, consumed by destruction. But when Portland's police chief, Bob Day, sits before the camera, his words cut through the storm. Calm, grounded, human. No, he says firmly, that's not an accurate description. Behind his measured tone lies something rare in the noise of modern America: restraint. He speaks of progress, of community, of crime rates falling. He doesn't deny the tension, he acknowledges it, but he refuses to let his city be defined by chaos. And then, the camera shifts. The words from Washington grow louder, harsher. "You are unleashed," says a voice from the White House, echoing like a war cry. "The handcuffs are not on you anymore. They're on the criminals." The crowd of officers cheers, but in that cheer lies a chill. For in those words, some hear empowerment, and others, danger. Chief Day's voice returns, steady against the storm. "We must stay in the middle," he says. Calm, consistent, fair. He doesn't shout. He doesn't inflame. In a time when outrage has become oxygen, his calm feels almost rebellious. But the images that follow are haunting. Armored vehicles rolling past American homes, snipers on rooftops, protesters staring into the barrels of guns. Commentators call it un-American. "We must never normalize this," one general pleads. "Soldiers should never patrol American streets." His words hang heavy, like smoke after an explosion. And so the battle lines are drawn, not between citizens and soldiers, but between two visions of America. One ruled by fear and one by freedom. One that sees enemies in its own people, and one that dares to believe in unity. Portland stands as more than a city. It's a mirror, a reflection of what America is, and a warning of what it could become.